Hey guys, welcome back out in the garage. Hope everybody's doing good out there and don't catch that bug that I caught about 6 days ago. Okay, I thought I was counted down and out. All right, I was laid up. All right, so it was my first day back out, and since then out in the garage. And so I just wanted to do a little takeoff from the last video that I made. I had two blocks side by side, and we was talking about, I went and picked them up. They're already machined and everything. They're already bored. They're already decked. They've been power home cleaned, and the but there was changes since the previous talk of what we was gonna do or how we was gonna build these two engines, and so parts that was gonna go in this block is now going into this block, and that one became a 357 to a 377, an offset grind, new pistons and stuff like that. So none of that's a big deal, except the only concern we kind of had was the bores. Okay, what did the shop bore these blocks to what pistons? Because now this block is getting a different piston than what it was originally going to get, and then this other block that I showed is getting a different one. So that was one concern we had. But my biggest concern that I brought up during that last video was on this block here, the number 5 main cap. Okay, I was showing the number 5 main cap, and it had a rubber oil seal. Okay, or the neoprene or whatever material that is, but the block still has the original rope seal. Okay, so when they machined it and cleaned it, they just left the rope seal in. That happens, okay? But in a way that was kind of a blessing, because I seen it has a rope seal, but I seen the cap has a rubber seal. And it was incorrect. It was put in correctly because there's a little spike that if you go to the rubber ones, you have to remove it. That spike is what holds the rope seal, okay? And that's been removed. So that tells me, okay, so somebody knew what they were doing. Except, what is it doing on this block if it's got a rope seal? Were they just fitting something, or is it a wrong cap? Okay, so anyway, that's kind of where we left off on that last video. So what I did was I came out here today, and before I laid this crank in and did all that, I went in and put the straight bar in it to see how the alignment, how the block, if it needs to be, if it's tweaked or anything, as far as the line home would be. I checked the straightness of the saddles. Okay, they were good. So it's okay. So that's one thing out of my mind about that. Okay, so we know the saddles are straight. They're good. Now I went ahead. The crank that they wanted to put in this one, originally I thought it was just going to need a polish, and I had spoke that on the last video. Well, after looking at it, it needs more than a polish, okay? And it's a 2030 right now, but it's got some weird looks to it. Little hairline rust cracks that they're probably not even cracks. They're probably just rust. Might be why it's 2030. It might have been a really rusted crank, and they just had to grind so much off to get rid of that. But I can see still pitting like old rust pits, okay? And I can see these little lines, shadowy looking, they're weird looking. So I want to mag it, okay? But I can mag it with my mag, but it really needs to be done like with a wet mag and stuff. And so if we're gonna use that, now I'm kind of tossing if we need to change the crank or not. But anyway, going back to this. So I went ahead and it had used bearings and everything, so I cleaned them up and everything, stuck them in the block. And I wiped that crank off and stuck it in there and started laying the caps on, and it locked up. Okay, the minute I started tightening the caps up, just tightening them up by hand like this, it was locking up the crank. Okay, so I'm like, well, that's a good sign that they could be the wrong caps. So I removed all that. Now I grabbed this crank, which goes to another build I have, and another set of bearings. Set all that in there, and it turns really hard with the caps the way they're sitting right now, but the bolts are all loose. but I seated all the caps, but the bolts are loose, and I can barely, yeah, you can see how tight it turns, okay? The minute I tighten, no matter which one I tighten, it locks that crank up. So I went ahead and did it in order. I went 5th main, locked it up, loosened it all back up. 4th main, it locked it up, and then I went all the way down. So these are definitely the wrong caps for this block. So maybe, I think he had like 3 blocks at that machine shop at one time being all machined up for these builds. One of them, the other block, is a 4-bolt main, so it couldn't go wrong because the other 2 were 2-bolt mains. So I'm thinking these caps here go to that other block he has, which unfortunately that's Florida, so I'm not just gonna jump in the truck and drive downtown and grab them, right? So there's a couple options, which the best option I think is to get the correct caps, okay? The other option is to go ahead and line hone or line bore, depending on how much it's off, okay? And do it that way, except if he goes to assemble the engine at his place, then, or the other block, or whoever does it, is gonna say, hey, you know, it locks up with these caps. And they're gonna have that one line hone and everything. So I'm thinking the best thing is to get a hold of them, tell them, ship those other caps, let me try them, and if that cures it, then I'll ship these instead of crossing it in case there is a fluke deal, okay? So, and that's the best way to doing it, okay? And instead of line honing, you know, 2 blocks that really doesn't need it if all we have to do is change the caps. That's just me though. But we'll see what he says. So again, that's where I stand on this one. Gotta talk to him about the crank. I don't really care for that crank, but I am gonna do a little more investigation on it and find out what the heck those little marks are, and see what that is. Or he may have to get a different crank, and we may have to swap caps unless he's wanting to line home both blocks. I don't. We'll find out. Okay. So as of right now, this one's kind of stuck at the moment. All right. And the other one, I've already over Steve's is where I do the balancing. We already took the rotate assembly over there. We're gonna be balancing that soon. I just gotta get a balancer still, and then go from there. All right. So, but we have lots more to do. Okay. Well, there's a lot of stuff in here. So anyway, all right, guys. Be safe out there and stay healthy and don't catch that bug, whatever it was. All right. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks.